Please welcome the New York editor of Business of Fashion, Lauren Sherman, for an interview with the co-CEO of Westfield, Stephen Lowy.
Nice song. Yes, I do. Can't believe they played that song. That was very clever. Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm here to introduce Stephen Lowy, who is the co-chief executive of Westfield Corp. He has spent the last 30 years working to remain both nimble and effective in the world of retail real estate development. Westfield did a very strategic thing a few years back. They sold off their middling properties and began investing in flagships in urban city centers like London, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. Next up is Milan in Europe in 2018. In 2012, Stephen founded Westfield Labs with a mission to use technology to make shopping centers around the world work better. Another part of that group is Westfield Retail Solutions, which helps retailers take advantage of their physical assets and data. To illustrate what they're doing, we're going to play a short video. So let's play that video, and then we'll get chatting.
While our industry is transforming, we're all spending billions just trying to keep up. But we need to do more than keep up. We need to lead. And we need to start now. It's time for us to all come together to share data that helps us better understand and serve our consumers, and build technology that revolutionizes the shopping experience for both retailers and customers. No one retailer or mall operator can do this alone. An unprecedented network, a collective commitment to join forces and share technologies like AR, machine learning, and natural language processing to meet our consumers at every touchpoint, learn their routines, anticipate their wants, and redefine what it means to shop. The future of retail starts now. Join us in reshaping the way the world shops.
Okay. So tell us what that means. What is this retail network that you're trying to create?
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. Hi, everybody. What is this network? We fundamentally believe that there's a major disadvantage at the moment of physical retail, which is very fragmented, and it needs to become integrated as online options are today. And to become integrated, the legacy of retail, real estate really needs to change dramatically. And it needs to change in a number of ways. It needs to change fast. It needs to change with the view of collaboration among retailers, among landlords, among brands, among audience partners, among customers. And it needs to turn from being a disaggregated industry into an aggregated industry so it can be competitive. And we fundamentally believe a platform and a network needs to be created to weave all of these pieces of the puzzle together.
So in terms of sharing data, what kind of data do you think people should be more open about?
Well, I spoke 18 months ago at NRF in New York, and it's the first time Westfield had spoken about the concept of the importance of collaboration, of sharing of data. And there was 4,000 people in the room at the time, and I think they thought I was nuts. A year later, just over a year later, it's common practice. We are speaking with retailers all the time. We are speaking about sharing our data, how to use the data to make a much better customer experience that currently exists today. Every retailer on their own really only deals with their own business. The retailers have very little knowledge, if any knowledge, of a customer prior to a purchase. They don't know where they are. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they did yesterday. They don't know what they're going to do tomorrow. And so the whole concept of sharing data is so the experience between the consumer and the retailer can be enhanced dramatically from where it is today. A few years ago, even in the United States, it's hard to get retail sales from retailers, and that's just yesterday's game. it's now common practice, a commonly accepted principle that retailers that are predominantly physical in nature need to figure out how to collaborate and share their data. So the experience of understanding what does the customer want to do? Where are they? How can I make a sale? How can I make a much better experience for the consumer than currently exists today? And that's really what we fundamentally believe needs to happen, and that's what Westfield Retail Solutions is doing.
What do you think the customer wants today? I know that you just kind of had a grand opening for your Century City location in Los Angeles, and that mall has been around for years, but it's dramatically changed. What does that mall look like that kind of reflects what your ethos is around what people want today from a shopping experience?
I think it's all about creating a wonderful experience, shopping experience, being very consumer-centric in that experience. And it really has to have two platforms. It has to have a physical platform that wows the consumer, excites the consumer. It evokes all the senses of the consumer in a way that online really can't do. And if I use Century City as an example, because it's just opened, there's 50 new retailers there that Westfield has never done business with before. It's got a heavy focus on food, on technology, on automotive, on leisure. People are spending their discretionary dollars in different ways than they did before. So you need to provide those services. You need to provide health and fitness. And you need to do it in a beautiful environment. And if you provide all of that, you'll have a very excited consumer. But it's not enough. On top of that, you need to provide a consumer with the ability to shop when they want to shop, how they want to shop, who they want to shop with, and you need to create the opportunity for them to have a digital platform that excites them as well as a physical platform. A physical platform is not enough today.
Yeah. You know, I bet today the word Amazon is going to be said hundreds, if not thousands of times. I'm curious to know what you think Amazon does right that the retailers that you work with could learn from. Like, what are they doing that other retailers, practices that other retailers should be adopting? You mentioned the fragmented versus integrated solutions. Maybe speak to that.
Well, clearly it's an amazing company. It's achieved so much in so many different ways, well beyond what anybody thought, most people thought they could do. And it's truly integrated. It's fast, it's innovative, and it's speeding up its innovation. And I think we need to learn a lot from that. I think the retailers themselves need to be fast. They need to go from slow to fast. Developers need to go from slow to fast. We need to innovate. We need to be, we need to definitely, I've said this before, we need to collaborate and share our data. We need to do it in a way that uses modern technology. We need to move from the web to apps to using voice recognition, augmented reality, natural language processing, artificial intelligence. These are things that the rest of the world needs to be good at. And again, Westfield Retail Solutions is investing heavily in this area because we believe that there's a major opportunity ahead of us, because still 80–90% of all the stuff that we buy and do is done physically. And the opportunity and actually the comparative advantage that can occur is if you turn that fragmented industry into a really aggregated industry, one with a platform and a network that really gives the consumer the ability to do what they want when they want it, and to do it from existing retailers that are prepared to invest at speed to be part of that collaborative network.
And you have, what, 200 employees working on this in San Francisco
Something
and London?
like that between San Francisco and London right
And
now.
how long has this been in the works for?
Well, we focused on this 4 or 5 years ago. We're a real estate developer. We saw a number of things had to happen. We had to focus on our great real estate, our flagship assets in great cities of the world. We had to modernize those. We're in the middle of a $10 billion development program right now. The opening of World Trade Center last year, the opening of Century City last week. We will expand Westfield London on the west side of London with John Lewis March next year. We will start Milan next year. These are all great assets in great cities, and that's a fundamental part of our platform. Another part of our platform is to build a digital network that can sit on top of that and the rest of the industry, because it's missing now from the industry. It's a missing piece of the puzzle. You're seeing enormous growth from online and internet players, and they're moving physically. You've also seen great growth digitally from existing physical retailers, but there hasn't been the combination of the two put together yet. Yeah. And we believe that's the opportunity ahead of us.
So I want to talk really quickly about Milan. You have properties in many different areas of the world, and many of which are in the US, which is a very different market from Europe.
Sure.
What do you think the challenges are in Europe, and what does the customer need in these cities, in London and Milan, in other city centers here, that perhaps is a bit different from the US market?
Well, I don't think the needs are different. I think the environments are different. The US has been built over 5-6 decades of fragmented retail, overshopped, of course, has been discussed before. And European cities have stricter planning laws, really dense environments where you have a mixture of food and fashion, and high fashion and discount all together. People generally live in smaller houses or apartments, and they live in the street more, so there's a much more of a street life. And so that's some of the differences between the markets. And of course, the retail penetration in the UK or Europe is dramatically less than in the United States because of that. I don't think they want or do things differently. I just think the opportunity we see in Milan is that it's one of the 4 fashion capitals of the world. There is no department store-based mall in Italy, a market of that. Northern Italy, Milan area is one of the wealthiest parts of Europe, if not the wealthiest part of Europe. We see it as just an amazing opportunity that's undershopped, not dissimilar to when Westfield opened in a suburb called Shepherd's Bush. We built Westfield London only 10 years ago, and Stratford just on the Olympic site. Those 2 buildings today, in less than 10 years, do £2.2 billion of sales and have 75 million customer visits. That's disruption. That's physical real estate disruption, because we put something on the ground that wasn't there, that the consumer was very excited about. It's fundamentally, it was undersupplied, and we brought a great product. Our vision now is to take those great products and to build a network and a platform above that connects the retailers, the consumers, the brands, and the audience partners digitally as well as physically.
If you could say to your retail partners, here's the one way that we can help you that you're not utilizing us enough, what would you say? What can Westfield do for their retail partners that perhaps retailers aren't asking for enough, or maybe?
Well, we are already working with some of the world's best retailers today. We are working with them in collaboration of data that gives you the ability to connect brands with retailers, to target advertising from brands to consumers of retailers. It gives the ability to then use proximity to locate consumers and then connect them physically with retailers. So that's a great service to a consumer, unbelievable service to a retailer, because if we can start to connect, the very best shoppers of brands, and we can connect them using our platform, well, that's a massive win for consumers and a massive win for retailers. That's in the process now. What does it require? It requires retailers to be fast. It requires them to be open. It requires them to be collaborative. It requires them to be open and share their data. And if that's done in a high quality, protected, technologically advanced environment, I think that's a very exciting proposition.
What do you think is kind of next in terms of technology? I think you hear about what is possible in store, and there's a lot of touch screens, there's magic mirrors, there's things like that. What are some of the things that you are looking at that you feel like are really going to change the shopping experience?
We are very, very focused on voice recognition, the ability for a consumer to speak to either a phone or a machine, and through that not be connected to one company, but be connected to a complete network of organizations. That's clearly an opportunity that's growing enormously in the last few years. We're very focused on that as an organization. That combined with machine learning and understanding how to understand the habits and the social habits of consumers and use that to provide a much better experience of them, connect them with particularly retailers. And so the use of these products in a way that the consumer is very comfortable with. It's, you know, yesterday was about getting a website or downloading an app. Well, they're not doing that today. They've got all the apps they want. They're not interested in that. They're interested in instantly connecting, being connected, and ease of connection to do things the way they want to do it, when they want to do it, and how they want to do it. And so there are technologies today. Clearly, I'm not a technologist. I'm a real estate developer. But I clearly understand the business that Westfield is in the business of connecting consumers to retailers. That's what we do for a living. It happens to be building a building, but it's no longer if you think of your business as connecting consumers with retailers, you must have a digital approach to that today, and you must be using the most modern technology to do that. If you're thinking about an app and a website, you're thinking about yesterday's technology. If you're thinking about augmented reality, using proximity, natural language processing, voice recognition, they're the technologies that the consumer's expecting today that can really just create a beautiful experience for them digitally, but you also must focus on that physical experience and just creating an unbelievable environment that people like to do. People don't, they're human beings, they like to interact, they like to eat, they like to socialize, but they like to do it in beautiful environments. So it's incumbent to focus on a dual strategy.
Can you talk a little bit about that mix and what those environments need to look like? In Century City, for instance, the architecture is very specific and beautiful, and it feels like you're outside. You kind of are.
You are. It's an outside so. And it's California.
So. Yeah. So, but can you talk a bit about that strategy in particular and how you found the right retail partners and how the architecture and the wellness and the food, it all kind of connects together?
Yeah, I mean, the environment, the focus on design is as important as technology. Our mall in Century City today it's really like going into a beautiful garden, and you feel really beautiful when you're in it. It's an enjoyable space to be in, and around you is not a enclosed mall with bricks and glass, but it's really an open air environment, heavily focused on food and technology. Apple has doubled the size of their store. Tesla doubled the size of their store. Italy has come to their first West Coast location there. Equinox Gym, a range of micro fitness, heavy focus on health, leisure, beauty, food. From 5 to 10 years ago, the focus that Westfield has on having food and leisure and technology and automotive, it's so much more than it used to be. We now have the sales of technology and automotive in our malls is triple what it was 10 years ago, and food is double what it was 10 years ago, and that trajectory is just going to continue.
So with that growing, what has shrunk is, in many cases, apparel retail. And obviously in the US, we see that with earnings reports and closing stores. How do you get the people who are coming in to go to your restaurants, how do you get them to convert and buy things at the apparel
Have good restaurants, first of all. All of that's changed dramatically. The restaurants today with named chefs, Michelin star chefs, they're not the restaurants that we may remember of a mall 20 and 30 years ago. So there's an incredible demand and focus on food. You can't do that at home. You can only do that when you go out. You want to go out, have a beautiful experience. You want to go to the movies. You want to have a meal. You want to go to the gym. These are things you need to get out of the house for, or your apartment for. And you need to be incredibly focused to do that. And this is the business that Westfield is in, is producing these unbelievably exciting retail and leisure and food and fashion complexes. Fashion is down a bit in percentage, but it's up overall because there are some great fashion retailers out there. In these malls, stores like Zara and from Inditex, they're on fire. You know, they're taking double and triple the size of the stores they did before, as is H&M and many others. So it's changing. I mean, we've been in the business 57 years. Our business has been successful only because we've continued to adapt and be relevant. Retailers is no different, and we need to have the most modern and current retailers in our buildings to attract the consumer. If you have them, you will attract the consumer. If you have a beautiful environment, that's a big plus. If you have a technological platform, you can connect them better. So this is the sort of the ecosystem that we're talking about.
What do you think the best retailers are doing right now to attract the customer?
The best retailers are laser focused on their customer, putting their customer in the center of everything that they do. All actions focus on servicing the customer, and creating value and service for them that they keep coming back for. And it's tough. Retailing is tough. That's why we're in the real estate business. We'd be lousy retailers. But what we do is provide a platform for great retailers. And we have many, many thousands of them in our malls. Just in the 3 malls we've just opened at Century City, UTC in San Diego, and World Trade Center in New York, there's 120 new retailers in those buildings that we've never done business with before. Because there's a whole lot of new retailers that are coming to replace the retailers that are closing stores. And they're the retailers in the categories of micro-fitness, of food, of athleisure, of technology. Those are the retailers that are replacing old and outdated and irrelevant retailers today. I don't think it's technology that's killing these retailers. It's just these retailers have not invested in their product, they have not invested in technology, and they have not kept the consumer at the center of what they're doing.
Well, with that, we have to wrap up. I guess my final thing is, what's next for you? What are you going to be focusing on in the next 6 months or year that's really important to the industry at large?
Well, I think we're in the process of continuing on this $10 billion development program. Century City has just opened. UTC in San Diego opens in a couple of weeks' time. Westfield London opens in March next year. We'll start Milan. That's on the physical side. All of the rest of our flagship assets we're going back to and reinvesting in a capital sense. In technology, you've got to put technology in the physical buildings, and many of these buildings are 30, 40 years old. Otherwise, you can't connect the consumer and the retailer with audience partners in a way that I described before. So you're never finished. I mean, what we're focusing on the next 6 months is no different to the last 6 months. It's continuing on the strategy that I've outlined to you.
Great. Stephen, thank you so much.
Pleasure, Lauren.
It's great to chat with you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.